Do you ever wonder what would happen if one of the first enemies you encounter in a game got his own adventure? Gargoyle's quest for the Game Boy does this, with the protagonist being one of the first enemies you encounter in Ghosts and Goblins for the NES. It's like the Goomba from Mario getting his own adventure. It's pretty weird. Released by Capcom in 1990, the game didn't get much attention at all, but it became somewhat of a cult classic. And how could it not? Look at that box art. Man, just look at his face. He's just really excited to be there. He's like, oh yeah, let's have a goddamn quest. Let's get into the story of the game. A long time ago, the Ghoul realm barely escaped great peril. A large army of destroyers came from a neighboring universe. The creatures of the Ghoul realm were no match for the powerful destroyers. Just when everyone had given up hope, a great fire swept over the realm, wiping out the destroyers' armies. Several hundred years have passed, and the realm is threatened once again. Firebrand is the gargoyle who is predestined to be the legendary Red Blaze, who will save the Ghoul realm from the evil wrath of King Bragar and bring peace to the land once again. The story of Gargoyle's quest is pretty brief, but at least you can tell there was some effort. It's a story that's not all too exciting or awesome, but it has some epic moments, I guess, and it's more than I expected for an action platformer. Usually games like this just have the story where you're like, okay, rescue that person and save the world. Anyway, this game isn't about the story. The game is an action platformer, but it actually has a lot of really unique RPG elements thrown in there too. For example, you have a world map where you walk around, visit different towns, different places, find items, etc. You have upgrades to your attacks like different types of fireball that let you grab onto walls or shoot different flames. And you even have random encounters in this game, which blows my mind. See, when you walk around the overworld, bam, you have these little short platforming sections, a lot like Zelda 2 for the NES. However, the only strange thing is that, while Zelda 2 had an experience system, this game has nothing like that. So, if you get stuck in a random encounter, it doesn't even give you experience points, so it's almost like, what's the point? It's just wasting time. They even dropped this element from the sequel, so it's kind of annoying, but at least these small random encounters are really short, thankfully. So, the basic premise of the game is that you progress across the world, figuring out how to get to the next town, the next dungeon, the next power-up, etc. It's a very simplistic game, but the fact that they gave you a whole overworld means that it's less linear at least, and it's funner to explore, find different secrets, etc. When you actually get to the levels, you control Firebrand. Firebrand jumps, he shoots projectiles, and the most interesting thing is that he can fly. This game is basically built around you flying, and Firebrand has the ability to fly for a short period of time, indicated by a wing meter at the bottom of the screen. He can also hook onto walls, which allows him to rest and recharge his wing meter. So, as you can imagine, being a Capcom game, there's a lot of attention to detail in how you fly around these levels, cling on to things, fly across things. It's really well done. The levels are really tightly designed. Like, there's some places where there's basically spikes everywhere, and you have to pinpoint your jumps to carefully get around without dying. Because of this, the game can be somewhat difficult at times, and it does feel like your sprite is a little big, like I'm getting hit by a lot of things I probably shouldn't be, but nevertheless, it's not really an overwhelming game. It's got tight controls, and it's more fun than frustrating, thankfully. There's also a really good variety of levels, like castles, there's caverns, forests. Everything kind of adheres to this gothic theme, and it's really cool because of that. The boss battles are also good in terms of variety, but they have kind of random difficulty. There was some that if you stand in one sweet spot, you can kick the shit out of them, but then there's others where you're replaying again and again until you finally beat them, and it's a pain in the ass. The bread and butter of Gargoyle's quest is the really tight and fluid gameplay. The fact that you have so much freedom, the controls are really perfect, and there's so much variety, enemies, and different challenges to conquer. Again, it's not a particularly difficult game. There are some rough spots here and there, and it's not a long game either. I think it could be beaten in maybe 5-10 hours. It's a game that has excellent flow, and that'll keep you going from beginning to end without a complaint. The graphics in the game are really good for 1990 Game Boy. It's got like a gothic style, good variety, it's a great looking game. The levels have like a creepy vibe to them, the bosses as well, and my only issue is that the game does blink out a bit and get a little glitchy sometimes, but this is 1990, so I think we could forgive it, and it never really obscures the gameplay. The music in the game is pretty outstanding. This is Capcom. The music complements the really gothic style of the game, it's catchy, it's extremely memorable. In conclusion, Gargoyle's Quest for the Game Boy is a forgotten classic that deserves way more love than it gets. It's got very tight and fluid gameplay, variety, challenge, and it's undeniably fun. It may have a few rough patches here and there, but you won't regret picking this one up, whether it's on the Virtual Console or otherwise. Check it out. Thanks for watching.